the mere fact that you bid the job for 100 and it took you 150, doesn't matter how perfect your math was on paper, you're still losing money. There's essentially two components to getting an estimate priced profitably. Making sure you're using the correct math, making sure you have the correct quantity of resources in that estimate. If you get those two right, you'll have predictable profits. If you have something that's robbing you of profits, it's in one of those two buckets.
This episode is brought to you by Hardscaper.com. The Hardscaper mission is to empower industry professionals with the skills, inspiration, and confidence they need to take their businesses to new heights. Struggling with training programs for your team? Looking for helpful tips to build a better company? Subscribe today to gain access to hours of interactive on-demand Hardscape construction and business courses for free. Check out Hardscaper.com. You're listening to Hardscape Growth, a podcast for hungry professionals who want to grow their businesses and level up. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Hardscape Growth Show. I'm your host, Alex from Techno-Bloc, and today we're talking about profit killers for contractors. Where does the money go? You bust your butt all year, and at the end of the year, you're looking at the books, and you're like, oh, I really thought we were going to do better this year. So to help us navigate that conversation, we're here with Wes from Synked Up. Wes has been on the show a few times. One of the reasons why I keep asking him to come back on is because he has access to a lot of data on what the realities are in the marketplace, what contractors are actually making as profits. And I asked him to pull some stats ahead of this episode to help us understand like really the importance of this stuff. And one of the things that really stood out to me before we get into this, the average contracting company in our world who is not doing job costing, who's not doing budgeting, who is kind of flying by the seat of their pants, they're left with about 3% left at the end of the year. When you do the things that Wes and his company and his software help you do, the average jumps up to 15 to 20%. So if that sounds interesting to you, then I think that this will be a great episode for you to listen to. Like I said, Wes has been on a few times, so let's get at it, man. Wes, welcome to the show.
Right on. Thank you, Alex. It's always a good time.
So
and your background keeps getting better.
I keep adding books. To it. Yeah. So Wes, you've been on a few times. Like I said, one of the big things that I think is always important is for people to know the background of the guests on the show. Like why do you do what you do, and how did you get started? Let's go with the short version for people who have heard you before.
Sure. So I started working at a company called Tussie Landscaping in central Pennsylvania when I was 16. So I was just an employee. I was just working on the crew. Had no responsibilities other than just working on the crew. And at that time, the company was very much your standard, kind of run-of-the-mill contractor, a little less than $1 million at the time, but definitely in that 3% net profit statistic,
Yeah.
And of course I was not an owner, so I was not feeling the pain directly, but I was observing the company. And I watched Steve and Matt, the owners of the company, go to seminars and try to beat this situation to death and try to figure out what is the solution. And over the years, I worked there for 15 years. And over the years, as I got more and more involved in the business, I took on like a director of marketing position alongside of running a crew, and ultimately started building a software project. But backing up to this early days, what was happening is we were flying by the seat of our pants, which meant that we got those results of 3% net profit. And as Steve and Matt and Derek and eventually myself got into this, like, well, how do we solve this? We stumbled across this concept called overhead recovery. Building a budget helps you mathematically correct your overhead recovery so that your pricing is corrected, and that gets you to that, typically, statistically speaking, to your 10 to 12%. But the pain is when you're in that 3% statistic, you don't have cash to grow. You maybe would wish you could hire career employees instead of just summer job keepers. But the money isn't there to fund that. Yeah, you can't do it. And so you can't pay your employees over the winter, so they leave. Like, this was very much the situation that I walked into when I was a teenager. We're starting this job, but credit to Steve and Matt. Like they attacked this problem vehemently and ultimately stumbled across a solution. We were doing the budgeting and stuff manually for a long time. Then we started using, more automated things like software. But once we got the budgeting piece out of the way and we were fixing that math problem in our business, the next hurdle was job costing, which you kind of rattled off. Like getting into job costing kind of doubles yet again the juice for the squeeze on the net profit. You can go from 10 to 20. And what I saw in Tussie Landscaping is as we figured out the budgeting, we got profitable. Cool. But as we started job costing every single job, we squeezed just as much juice out of this, seeking profit as in the job costing as we did in the budgeting. And the reason for that is because it made us aware of where we were running over labor, running over materials, where we were like, dude, it makes no sense for us to send a person to a vendor to pick up product. That $200 delivery fee that we were telling ourselves is too expensive, we can't afford to not pay that because we need that employee on the job site working. Those are just the things that happen when you do job costing.
So if we back up, I think one of the things you said that is a real pain point. I talk to a lot of contractors like, yeah, I'd love to have people stick around like all year and, year after year where the team gets bigger and better and stronger and works together longer. And you're 100% right. Like if you don't make enough money that you can pay these people year round, well, then they can't stick around year round. And you're kind of starting from square one every spring. You might have a couple loyal people that come back, but you're still going to have that revolving door to a certain extent with a certain percentage of your crew. So understanding the numbers and the budgeting part is really just knowing what does it cost to run my business.
Yep.
Factoring that, figure out that big number, break it down into man hours. How much do I need to recover per person, per job, per hour to be able to pay that back so that there is money left over? That's the first part. And that can be done a number of ways, which we've talked about before as well, whether it's spreadsheets or software. Or you can even do it by hand if you want. It's just more painstaking, but it
just takes forever. Yeah.
The job costing part, just to define what these things are, job costing means job is done. How did we do? How accurate was my estimate? Where did I make a mistake? How do I not make that mistake again? That's what takes your profits from that 10% range to that 20% range, because you eliminate the estimating and sales errors that are occurring, that are inevitable in any business. So understand what it costs to run the business. That'll take you from making nothing to making something. And then doing the post-game analysis and breaking down the tape and figuring out what do we got to do to not make these same mistakes. That'll take you from the 10% to the 20%.
That's right.
That's what we're talking about.
That's right. And, I did say at the beginning there that because I was not an owner, these problems were not impacting me directly. And actually, that's not really true, because
Why?
I was a teenager at the time and, being that summer job holder, that's who I was by definition, right? But had the company not solved these problems, I would have got squeezed out of working there long term as a career because
it's not a career. It's just
because I was getting married, I was buying a home, like all these things. I could no longer afford to work for the summer job wages, and so fortunately, the company solved these problems, and I had an excellent career there, making really good money. But had the company not done these things, that would have been impossible, and they would have been stuck in that cycle of hiring summer job holders over and over and over again.
So how do you go from, and we're going to get into this stuff in a second, but one of the questions I genuinely have is how do you go from building stuff on a job site and then kind of emphasizing to them, hey, we need to do marketing. And then you start doing all the social media content and the YouTube channel and all that stuff for Tussie. How do you go from that to building a software? It's a bit of a leap.
Of a leap, yeah. Like I kind of jokingly have told other people, yeah, I'm just a hillbilly, crew leader here in the hills of Pennsylvania, and I started a software.
Exactly. It's like,
what? It's a pretty big leap, but really, the short story of how that happened is my dad had a telecommunications company. So even though I was working at this landscaping company, I was around tech indirectly through his company. He sold his company in 2012, and the company that bought him out had a software development division, and he went to work for them for a period of time. And in the middle of Tussie Landscaping solving these problems, living in the spreadsheet world, I came home from work one day, and my dad was sitting on his back patio, clicking around on some graphs on his laptop, working. And I was curious, and I leaned in, I was like, show me what you're doing. And he was explaining to me, and like the light bulb went on. I was like, wait, you're literally building software from scratch, telling it what you want it to do. And that's where the light bulb went on. And of course, there was a series of events after that. We didn't just like turn around and start building software,
Right.
but that's where it started. And so I went off to Steve and Matt essentially at this point, with this idea, like, dude, let's build this. That's one of the most naive missions I probably ever embarked on, because I had no idea what I was saying. But hey, by the grace of God, here we are, and so that's how we got connected. It was just luck. I don't know. Like we just got connected to the idea that, hey, we can build this. We don't have to necessarily reinvent the wheel from spreadsheets or whatever. And so we started building the software and just never took our foot off the gas pedal.
How many years ago was that?
That conversation was 10 years ago. And we started building 8 years ago, or having meetings and scoping, and then actually writing codes about 7 years ago.
And how many people are on the team now?
15.
15 people. Wow.
Yep.
Wow. So 15 people supporting Synked Up, getting people, constantly improving the software, but also adding, supporting the users as well.
That's right. Yeah. Cool. There's about a third between customer support, sales and marketing, and engineering, like building the product.
Nice. Yeah. So profit killers, what are they?
So of course we get to see hundreds, even thousands by this point, of contractors that fight the same battles, really, and you could argue that, well, everybody sometimes, there's a tendency to feel like I'm special or my problems are unique to me, and I have to figure this out on my own, but there really are commonalities. So like, wow, yes, theoretically speaking, there's hundreds of ways to lose profit in your business. What I've learned is that ultimately all of those hundreds of ways roll up into two. Okay. And I call that the profit triangle. So at the top if you picture a triangle, the peak, the top is profit. The bottom two corners are the two profit killers. The first one is math. The second one is resources. And you can swap those terms for budgeting and job costing, really, because budgeting is what fixes the math problem, overhead recovery, labor rates, what you're charging, what your margins are. Resources, job costing is what fixes that. So what I mean by the resources problem or the resources profit killer, it's when you chronically do things like you bid a job for 100 hours, but then it takes you 150 to complete. Even if you have perfect math on paper, the mere fact that you bid the job for 100 and it took you 150, doesn't matter how perfect your math was on paper, you're still losing money. So there's essentially two components to getting an estimate priced profitably: making sure you're using the correct math, making sure you have the correct quantity of resources in that estimate. If you get those two right, you'll have predictable profits. And if you have something that's robbing you of profits, it's in one of those two buckets. It's either you're screwing up the resources somehow or you're screwing up the math somehow in your budget. Okay.
So what's that mean? What do I do about that? Great.
Well,
I just heard you say that. Okay. I agree with you. Now what?
So first steps is assuming that you're in the 3% statistic, crowdsourced data of like, contractors are not job costing, contractors are not budgeting. The first thing that you want to do, and you can do this in an hour. Like often when I tell contractors they have to, hey, you want to go build a budget. It's like, oh my goodness, I'm not a numbers guy. Like, I let my accountant do that. Or the first thing you want to do is sit down and build a budget. And it can be it shouldn't take more than an hour, maybe tops 2 hours. So it can be a Saturday morning thing, brew yourself a cup of coffee and get down to it. And really what it is, it's in layman's terms, it's the act of plugging into a budgeting tool every dollar your business spends to keep the lights on. So every dollar your business spends to keep the lights on is overhead expenses, plus your labor, plus your materials, plus your subcontractors, plus your equipment. You plug all of those things into this budgeting tool, you've essentially solved the math problem. Now you just got to keep the thing updated. So when your insurance goes up, you go back and you update it. That's the only thing to it.
What stops guys from doing that? Because we've talked about this before.
Yes.
Building a budget. Yes, it's an hour-long exercise. Why don't we do it?
Okay, I think the primary one is excuses. Like we tell, it's an identity-based thing. Like I just love to do the work. I'm not a numbers person. I'm not a spreadsheet person. So therefore I feel like I'm not qualified to do a budget. Like I don't know what I'm doing. It's that aspect. The other aspect is owner operators, contractors are the busiest people on the face of the earth. Like most of these guys are, working, 14, 16-hour days. They're trying to do estimates at night. And it just feels like, well, basically they're addicted to the urgent instead of the important. And because they're addicted to the urgent, they're on this hamster wheel of constantly working to ensure that the urgent things get taken care of, the important things get pushed off to the side, and the budgeting falls into the important thing. But the motivation for how do I break out of that cycle is like, well, if you're losing money or not making the money you want to make, working harder, doing more work, working faster just digs your hole faster. So it's meaningless to work harder or do more work if you don't have these important foundational things locked into place. And I really think it's either we make an excuse that I'm not a numbers guy, I don't understand it, so I don't know how to do it, or I don't know where to start, as opposed to just sitting down and figuring it out. Because like today in the land of the internet, there is no lack of information; it's just lack of execution. And it's also the tendency of just being addicted to the urgent and not doing not giving time and space for the important, and living in a reactionary mode instead of designing your calendar, designing where you spend your time and your effort and energy.
So if I actually, I think, no, I don't have the book here. I thought I had the book here. It's a book called Eat That Frog. Pete gave it to me years ago. And basically it's just do the hard thing first, get it done, get it out of the way, and then your day gets a lot easier.
Yeah.
So planning, like you said, make your calendar, set aside an hour, first thing in the morning, make yourself a coffee and do it. Next rain day, if you haven't done it, do it.
Yep.
Yes, you have other stuff to do. Yes, you have people to call. Yes, you have paychecks to sign. Yes, you have vendors to pay. But if you're not doing this one thing, then you're never going to be able to improve. This is one of the foundational things, like you said, that you have to do. This episode is brought to you by Proseco. Today's homeowners expect low to no maintenance for their outdoor living space, and Proseco's line of specialty hardscape products are the answer. They're designed to go beyond basic cleaning and protection for pavers, slabs, walls, and coping, and help hardscapers stand out from the competition. Whether you're dealing with stubborn rust or hard water staining, or need lasting protection from water, salt, graffiti, or just everyday wear and tear, Proseco has a wide range of solutions for every challenge. Some of my favorite protectants are Paver Enhancer, which really makes colors rich and vibrant, and Salt Guard, which will protect your client's investment in even the harshest winter climates. Plus, their new adhesive is one of the strongest glues I have ever used. Visit Proseco.com or Techno-Bloc.com to learn more and connect with your local rep for samples and job site training opportunities. With Proseco, elevate every stone, every project, every time. How often is it right the first time? I build my budget. These are all the costs that I think I have to operate my business. How accurate is that when you do that the first time, and how much stuff do you end up missing? If you miss anything.
Yeah. So let's assume that you're just doing it manually on pen and paper, or you're building your own spreadsheet. Like my confidence of that being right is pretty low, because again, it's like you don't know what you don't know. And so, but if you're using we have a free budgeting tool on our website, which I can give you the, I can give you the link to, so you can put it in the show notes. People can jump on and use it after this episode. But if you use that tool, we designed a free budgeting tool. It's basically a glorified online calculator is what it is. But it's designed in such a way that it's prompting you to enter the data in such a way that you should. It's asking you the questions. So you should not be. You should not be missing major things on that. So if you follow the format of that budgeting tool, I mean, you're probably going to be within a margin of error of 5 or 10%, which is far better than not having any budget.
Okay. So I've done the budget. We're still living in our profit triangle here. We're in the math corner. I did the budget.
Mm-hmm.
And then?
Then you have to start estimating based on the labor rates and the markups that budgeting tool gives you, because often there's another fall off point there where people look at what the budget spits out and they're like, dude, there's no way I can do that. I can't sell for rates like that in my market, or whatever. Insert whatever excuse you have. Because
I did the budget and I end up at, I don't know, $150,000. And my company works, I'm just going to do rough math. Is $150,000 a good number?
For
I don't know, we're 3
Let's
to 5 man crew.
let's just say that, let's just go by labor rate. So let's say
Yeah.
I did the budget and the budget's telling me I have to charge $150 an hour, and I'm telling myself there's no way.
Yeah.
And so what you want to do then is like,
$150 an hour per person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's say it's telling you that, which I agree, that's high. So let's say that I have a problem with that. I look at that thing and I'm saying, I'm never going to do that. Okay, you got two options. Either you can cut expenses, that's one lever, or you can do more work, produce more revenue without increasing your overhead expenses. You basically have those two levers. That's the only thing you have.
To get that 150, I'm saying, like, let's say my labor, like my overhead is 100. What's a good overhead total for the year for a 3 to 5 man crew?
Okay.
Company?
I see what you're asking.
Yeah.
I see what you're asking. Okay, so the way I answer that is rule of thumb, without like diving into your own specific budget. Rule of thumb, what I look for is about 30% labor, 30% materials, 30% overhead, 10% profit.
Okay, so if I sold $250,000 of work last year, to take a really small number,
30% of that,
30% of that times
would be a rough
$75,000. $75,000, and I work. My company works on average 35 weeks a year. Let's say.
Yeah.
I live in Montreal, so that's a good year.
Yeah. Yeah.
The rest is snowing. So divide by 35 weeks. So I need to recover $21.42 and 86 cents per week. We have 3 guys on a job, and we're working 10-hour days, and we're doing 5 days a week. So that's 50 hours. 50 times 3 guys.
3. Yep.
So
So
divide
150
by 150 hours. So $14.29 would be what I need to recover per hour per person on top of what I pay them.
You got it.
Just to break even, just to be able to still come in and turn the key in the lock and turn the lights on and have them work.
Yep. You got it.
Okay. So that's how you calculate that. Now, for a lot of companies, that number will be a lot higher because we're doing a really small number and really cheap and dirty math. So if that number is too high and you're looking at what you're selling jobs for and you're saying, no, that means I would have to sell my jobs instead of for the Mrs. Smith project at 50,000, I have to sell it for 62,000. And she told me she has a budget of 50,000. She beat me up and, even tried to pay cash and whatever. And we landed on 50 and I got the job. That's where you're talking about like, well, you can't keep going down that path because there's nothing left at the end of the day.
That's
so
right.
The alternative is figure out how to lower your costs, lower your overhead,
or be more efficient.
Or get better at sales so that you're not getting beat up for $50,000.
100%. You're nailing a thing that I think is so often in that scenario that you mentioned. Your bid based on your math should come in at 62, but Mrs. Jones told you she has 50, and you're like, well, I either walk from the job and get no work, or I do it for 50. And so much of the time, people do take it 50, and they blame the price for when they do lose the job when they stick to their guns at the 62. Price is a factor. I'm not trying to say it's not, but
especially
it's also
the way the market is right now.
Yeah.
It will turn around, but today, people are still hanging on to their money and they want to stretch the value of a dollar.
That's right. So it is a factor. I can't sit here and say it's not, but the thing that will impact your ability to win those jobs far more than the price is your personal development as a salesperson, your ability to create value, do things that the competitors around you are not willing to do. What can you do? Having amazing client experiences, provide more value, build that trust and credibility in that sales process, work to educate your customer and help them make the best informed decision to achieve their goals and be on their team instead of being on opposite ends of this. Instead of your sales process feeling like a used car salesman process, it's more of a consultative approach of like, what is your vision for this project? How do you envision yourself using this space? And you become their subject matter expert to design this thing in such a way that meets their goals in ways they couldn't even have imagined or weren't even aware of. And focusing on things like that will win you more deals than focusing on shaving $3 off of your hourly rate ever will.
So we're going to get more into sales later, but
yeah,
do you find that that's a very common problem or challenge?
Very common. Yeah,
very common?
So often we get into the situation where a contractor, all right, yeah, I'm going to build a budget. I subscribe to the thinking. I'm going to do it, and come out the other end of that exercise saying like, there's no way. I'm not going to be able to charge. Maybe they were charging $60 an hour, and the budget's time they got to charge 92, and they're like, I can't do that.
So what's the usual reaction? They go back and redo all the numbers again to double check and triple check, or?
Definitely the first thing to do is to go back and see, is there a fluff in here that I could cut? That's that's kind of an obvious given. You always want to do that. You don't want to be wasteful, for sure. But there's way more fruit on the vine in seeking out ways to be more efficient than there is on saving $1 in your overhead expense.
Is that the other corner of the triangle?
Which connects back to the resources thing. And the resources thing / job costing is really the vehicle or the bright spotlight that will shine onto your company, that will show you where those efficiency opportunities are.
So in layman's terms, if the rate per hour is too high and results in your sale price of a project being higher than you think you can sell it for, then the next thing you can look at is how can I reduce, and you've already looked at how you can reduce your expenses. The next thing you can look at is how can I reduce the hours required to build this thing.
Yeah, how can I take this from a 5-day production to a 4-day production? And there's even something to be said, like it might be the same man hours going from 5 day to 4 days, but what you've just done is open up an entire other day on your year's schedule to produce more revenue on the next job. So sometimes increasing the man hours, not always, but sometimes it's a thing to look at. Sometimes maybe you're increasing the man hours on the job site per day, but you're decreasing the number of days it's going to take to execute that job. Creates more room on your overall annual calendar to get more jobs done in the same span of time.
So what's a good example of that?
So, a luxury when you have multiple crews in your company and you're not a one crew company, a luxury is, this is what we did at Tussie, is you have the ability of having a crew leader and their number 2 main right-hand person, right? And so when you're kicking off a job, maybe you're just shooting grades and excavating, doing the dig out, like you don't need more than 2 people. If you send 4 people to that job site, you're going to be wasting man hours. But when the dig out's done, the base is in and you're doing laying and cutting and all of that, you can up the number of people on that job site and be really efficient with it. So when you're a one crew company, you don't have the ability to have floaters, so to speak. That's what we call them. People that float from crew to crew to crew based on where they can utilize them efficiently. So there's actually something to be said for going to be a 2 or 3 crew company, because you can then have your core team, the leader and the right-hand person, plus a few floaters on your team that jump in on whatever crew they're most effective at based on the stage of the job at that time. Okay. That is a really big point of leverage for making your overall production more efficient. But when you're a one crew company, that's difficult.
It's more challenging. However, the first project of the year, probably not, but once we're close to wrapping up the first project, and maybe this is wrong, I don't know, but I'm just shooting ideas. Let's say I'm the owner operator. I could grab one guy.
Yep.
Let's say my most junior guy. Okay, we're going to go over to the next project. We're going to mark it up. So we're going to we're going to do the measurements. We're going to mark it up so that when we show up there on Monday, that part's already done. I don't have 3 guys watching me with a measuring tape. It was me and one other guy. We already did it.
Exactly. Yeah. And, even in the one crew, let's say you have 4 people in production on your company. So that's your typical one crew company, 3 to 4 people. Yeah. Let's say you have that. You could even start selling small planning jobs where the equipment can stay on the main job site, but you go off and do smaller jobs or lighting, anything that can kind of fill in for like your floaters, so that when you don't need 4 people on the one job site, you can go off and do something else and actually produce net new revenue on jobs that would not have been getting done. Yeah. that's an example of how you can do that without increasing your overhead expenses. Nothing changes. You have the same equipment, same trucks, same team, same everything. It's just that you're figuring out ways to produce more revenue without increasing those expenses. That's really an example of what I was saying earlier about there's more fruit on the vine on finding ways to be more efficient. That's a great example of what I meant by that.
You have any other examples of clients that you have that have done something really smart after looking at the numbers and going through and doing all this analysis and like, we have to change something?
Well, another easy one to point at is how you handle logistics in your company. Like you hear people, I can't pay $200 for a delivery fee because, you know, I could send my $20 an hour or $30 an hour employee and go pick it up in an hour and, you know, pay that person those $30. Well, that's not actually the true cost of sending that person over to pick up those materials at your vendor. The true cost is not only what you pay that person, also the overhead that needs to be recovered for that hour, also the profit margin that's in that hour, and also the opportunity cost of now they're not getting work done on the job site, they're going off and doing something else. So you lose the opportunity to get work done faster so you can move on to the next job sooner. And so that $200 hypothetical delivery fee is actually a lot cheaper than taking your skilled labor and doing logistical things that anybody can do.
Yeah, I find that kind of funny. Like we're perfectly happy ordering Uber Eats to the job site or ordering stuff off of Amazon and getting that stuff delivered to us. But then we look at the delivery fee for 2 pallets of pavers and we say it's $200 and like, oof, that's like an extra 10 cents a square foot. No, not at the price I sold the job, because these are the tangible things. These are the things in front of you, right?
Exactly.
These are the blocks in my hand. These are the dollars leaving my hand, going into your hand. But and that's why it's so important to do the stuff that we're talking about, write those numbers down and work it out so that, you know, it becomes more tangible. You can look at all the people on the job site and say, you are $62.50 per hour. If I put you in the truck that costs $50 an hour to operate,
right,
and send you guys over there and you come back, maybe you're back within an hour. Okay, maybe it's $110 instead of $200, but we also didn't build anything. And I was counting on you to build this because we have to be out of here at 4:00 today.
That's right.
Because we got to be on the next job tomorrow morning.
That's right.
And those things, it's a silly, well, it sounds like a silly example because it's such we're talking about small numbers, but these little decisions happen every day, all day, every week, all week, every year, all year. And we're talking about profit killers. That's where the profit is going.
That's right.
You're slowly leaking it away dollar by dollar, day by day with the decisions you're making because you don't have enough information in your head.
That's right. And what's happening is you see that transaction for that delivery fee right away. It's a tangible thing in front of your face immediately. What is much more intangible or much more under the surface is the opportunity cost of that employee not working on the job site, getting the job done.
How do you calculate that?
Well, it starts by considering opportunity costs. It's more, most people just look at cost versus costs and don't consider the opportunity cost layer. So when you add the opportunity cost layer, then it becomes a no-brainer. And so at Tussey, we got to the point very quickly where we were like, all our energy and all our planning, all our moves to become more efficient are in pursuit of one thing. How do we keep our skilled labor on the job site working? Don't leave that job site. You come into the shop, the trucks are washed, fueled, loaded. You're heading straight to the job site. No detours.
So you're paying for everything else. You have a company coming in, washing the trucks. You have someone coming in, greasing up the machines.
That's right.
You guys go on the jobs. You build hardscapes. That's how we make money. That is your job.
Exactly. You do not make money running materials around. You do not make money fueling up trucks. You make money when you collect checks for completed projects.
Some people disagree with that. No rebuttal?
Let's compare.
You can believe what you believe. It's fine. Yeah. You have hundreds of people using the software. You see what works and what doesn't work. This episode is brought to you by EZG. Since 1998, EZG has been crafting equipment solutions to solve issues contractors face daily from their shop in Malta, Ohio. Every piece of American-made equipment is designed to increase efficiency and cost savings on each and every job site. Couple tools you need in your trailer right now. The Crack Hog Precision Splitter. It's the original dustless cutting tool. It's safe, it's quiet, and it's perfect for pavers, slabs, and wall block. And if you're planning on laying a lot of large-scale slabs this year, the Grip Hog lifters, battery, compressor, or vacuum powered will boost safety and efficiency. Finally, the EZG roller paver compactor will consolidate joint fill without breaking the slabs and plank stones on your next project. And their customer service is honestly unparalleled. Each product comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you're not 100% satisfied, they'll take it back, no questions asked. Visit ezgmfg.com to learn more about their awesome line of tools and equipment.
Yeah, and I've literally watched this play out in my 15 years at Tussey. Like, I literally watched it, and I got to see the actual tangible impact on the company as a whole over years of following this thinking.
How does it impact the people when you make those shifts? Like you talked about you personally, the fact that, once they were able to make more profit, they were able to keep you on full time, which made you say like, okay, I can have a career here. This isn't just a part-time job or a job until I grow up kind of thing. That's one benefit. But are there other benefits that are felt by the people that would further motivate an owner to put in the work to do this stuff because it just makes it that much better for everyone involved?
Well, I would say, like, personally, like going back to when I was just running a crew, like but let me put the crew leader hat on. What changed? What changed was it was far less chaotic because there was far less like stuff always hanging out in my head. Don't forget this, remember that, fuel up the truck when you get back, jump in the truck the next morning. Oh, I forgot to fuel up. There was far less of that and much more just like well-oiled machine. Things like are clicking along like clockwork. I am kicking off a job site. The materials are sitting right there. Nobody ran for them. They got delivered, brought down, loaded the night before. It's far less chaotic, far more like just following a process and being able to focus on developing my skill, developing my craft, leading my crew. And I would even say for me, I don't know if this is true for everybody, but like just it helped me build pride in what I did and the craft I had because I wasn't soaking up a significant percentage of my willpower and memory and energy to managing chaos. I could hone my craft, so to speak. I don't know. Maybe that's a little vague or a little subtle, but that's what I felt.
I think I get what you mean. Like if you come into work in any job, you come in and it's just a dumpster fire right off the bat. Like that. That's if there's a dumpster fire waiting for you, that's stressful coming in.
Yeah.
B, you're there, that's stressful and that sucks a bunch of energy. And sure, you put out the dumpster fire, there's a little high five moment, but like you didn't actually do what you set out to do. You just put out fires.
Yeah, right.
And I think what this is saying is like doing this work, doing the math makes the problems obvious, makes the solutions even more obvious.
That's right.
So that you can put those things in and the company starts to become a more and more well-oiled machine just by virtue of paying attention to the right things and taking these steps and doing this math and doing the analysis after every project. If it creates the habits that immediately raise the flags on the problem areas. And as a business owner, the best opportunity for you is to find solutions to your problems. That is what business is, finding solutions to problems. And the people who are the best at finding solutions make the most money. So all this whole conversation is really just a roadmap or a framework for how do you identify problems quickly. Now, there are other problems. There are other problems like you can have personnel problems, you can have a marketing problem,
sure.
You can have a sales problem, but operationally, that's where your business makes money because you expend man hours to produce a product for customers.
That's
so
right.
Identifying the ins and outs of the money, the ins and outs of the labor, the ins and outs of the effort, and having the right balance so at the end of the day, there's enough money left in the bank account. That is the name of the game. All the other stuff enables that to be better and to grow faster, but that's the central cog of the whole thing.
I love what you said about it's a framework with which to analyze the data and make better decisions, because that's exactly what it is. Instead of making gut-based decisions on what I think is the problem to be solved of the day, or the thing that I need to get better at, you just plug the numbers in and you see like, oh wow, I had no idea. And you start making decisions based on actual facts instead of whatever your gut is telling you at the moment.
Yeah,
and
or whatever your buddy said, or whatever the guy at the counter at the dealer told you. Like, well, these guys are doing this. Like, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. You need to know your own math.
Exactly. And the outcome of that is when you have a competitor start up in town for $60 an hour and you're currently charging 95, you don't even waste a single brain cell on that. It's like in your head, you're like, it is what it is. I know my numbers. I've done the work. Like that guy doesn't know his numbers, and he's going to be struggling, all of those things. So you get
his
to the
brand
point
new
where
skid steer is going to be for sale next year. I should save some money. Let's budget for that.
But here's the other thing about budgeting that's really fun. That's sometimes doesn't get given enough of credit to. Once you have plugged in all of the expenses that you currently have, one of my favorite things about budgeting is turning around and then saying, what do I wish were true? I wish I could hire an admin to take things off my plate. I wish I could upgrade my truck. I wish I could upgrade my equipment, whatever that may be for you. Plug that into budget and go off and seek to sell work priced at that rate. And if you can still sell the work at that rate, bingo, there's your permission to invest into the company of tomorrow, the company you wish for. So it's a little bit like being able to build your own shopping list and get permission.
Yeah. But I mean, like, okay, so let's bring it down to reality here. And let's say, okay, so it is November right now when we're recording this. This will probably come out in December, but regardless, we're in a position where the market was going really well, and then it started slowing down. And last year was a year, or this current year, 2024, was a year of negative growth for our sector.
Right.
It regressed. The good news is all the indications are that next year it's going to start picking back up. That doesn't change the fact that it's still going to be super competitive out there.
100%.
So if it's going to be super competitive, and like you said, there are things that you wish you did or wish you had that would give you an edge. You wish you had a better design software. You wish that you were able to invest, I don't know, $3,000 a month on marketing to generate better quality leads to fill your pipeline so that you can sell more premium work. Budget for those things now so that as you're selling the jobs, you're stocking the coffers with the cash that you need to pull the trigger on that when the time is right.
That's right.
That's the biggest thing, because then it's not a sacrifice. Like, it's already budgeted for. It's already there.
Yeah.
I figured out how to get that money. It's sitting there, building, pull the trigger, boom. What's the next thing we need to do? We got to hire someone. Okay, we're going to do that. Another thing we talked about in one of our previous conversations, like you're wearing 15 hats running your business. And you're like, this is insane. I need to hire a salesperson. I need to hire a designer. Okay, well, how much are you going to pay that person? Work it into the budget. Keep grinding it out for another 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. After a year, hey, I have enough. Year one of the salary of this person is already accounted for, sitting in the bank account. We're good. We keep rolling. And you've already gotten accustomed to selling jobs at that little bit higher rate. Because when it's amortized over that much time, that many man hours, those additions aren't exactly. Yeah. It's $75,000 turned into $14.
Yeah.
Right. So you want to add this out. It's an extra $14.
The average Synked Up user spends $5,000 a year, and it impacts their man hour by pennies. That's like 50 cents, per man hour.
50 cents to know exactly what you need to do.
Exactly. And so what happens is you switch from the mindset of I am spending my own money on things like a salesperson or an admin or a marketing expense. Like, you switch from feeling like you're pulling money out of your own personal pocket and spending it, and you're just plugging it into the budget, and you're getting your permission to spend that money from your customer, the market. Mm-hmm. And so really you build the budget for the business of your dreams, and you turn around and try to convince the market
to invest in it.
It's like you're asking permission from the market, not from yourself. It's not your money, it's their money. Like, your customer is the one that's paying for everything in your business model. That's ultimately what it comes down to. It's a subtle perception shift, but it changes everything.
All right. So we started this talking about profit killers. We talked about the triangle. How do we wrap this up?
Let's say you are not doing any of them, or you're doing one of them, or you're doing both of them, but not great. Here's what I would tell you. Start by building your budget and then keeping that budget updated. Check. You got that done. Start by job costing. Second, start doing job costing on every single job. Don't make it optional when you remember, when you feel like it. It's got to be done every single time, because how you do anything is how you do everything. So if it's not part of your DNA, ingrained into your culture, the whole team is bought in. If it's not there, you're not done yet. Because if you do a budget but then don't update it, if you job cost after you get inspired to listening to this podcast for the next 3 jobs, but then it falls back off, you fall back into your old way of doing things, you haven't achieved anything. All you've done is switch from one thing to another to another to another. What you want to do is stack. You want to get budgeting done to where it happens as a process. Don't even think about it anymore. Then stack on top of that job costing. How you do anything is how you do everything. And if you don't view it that way and approach it that way, what's going to happen to you is you're going to come to a point where you look at that budget and you're like, yeah, but it's not right because of this and this and this. So you don't trust it. You only expended 80% of the effort and you get 0% of the results. Yeah. You start doing job costing and saying, yeah, but these hours are missing and this receipt's missing. So you expended 80% of the effort and got 0% of the results. Expend 20% more effort, get it to 100%, and you will actually have data that will help you make better decisions tomorrow and actually make meaningful change in your business.
It's super important. I'll close with this, Wes, but it's super important. I talked about what the prognosticators and the forecasters and the economists are saying. They're saying the next year it's going to start to rebound. The first quarter is still going to be negative growth, so it's still going to be a tough road. The second quarter is going to be pretty much flat, like almost 0% growth, but at least not negative anymore. The second half of next year is when they're projecting 1%, 2%, 3% growth per quarter. But they're also saying that 26, 27, 28, those years, don't be surprised to see 5% or greater growth in our segment. So if your profit margin today is 3% and you're not doing what you need to do to bring it to 10%, 15%, 20%, and you wait to do this, your business is still going to grow because the market is going to start to grow again. You're leaving 17% more of the profit on the table by not doing it now. So the sooner you get started with this, the easier it is to make those better decisions when the market really starts humming along again. And you're going to be in a better position because you will be making more money more consistently and predictably. That's why it's important to do it. That's why we're talking now. It's the end of 2024. 2025 will begin. Time does not stop. Business does not stop, but your ability to impact how efficient and how profitable your business is entirely in your hands. So the sooner you start, the sooner you'll see the benefits. And I don't know what else can be more convincing than knowing that the industry average is 3, but people who do the things that we're talking about, they're floating around the 15 to 20%. They're not changing anything else. They're just doing the math and having the discipline to analyze and correct, analyze and correct. Analyze and correct. And if anyone in business wants to be successful, they have to be great at problem solving, they have to be great at analyzing, and they have to be great at reinventing themselves. And this is one of the forms of reinvention. You look at what's working, what's not, we fix it. You're a new business the day after you make those changes. So that's the stuff you got to do. We're in business to make profit. It's as simple as that. Look at those two things. Look at what your budget is. Look at how your resources are spent, figure out how to optimize both. And it's a continuous journey. It's not like one and done. You're going to always be doing this, but you need to start with this process. And you have the resources to have that. We have a course on hardscaper.com that you can take for free. You have the budgeting tool on Synked Up, your website, synkedup.com, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Synkedup.com. And if you want to talk to Wes, he's going to be at every single one of our Hardscaper showcases all winter long. So if you want to talk to him and his team and understand more of this stuff and see how the software works, because spreadsheets are great, but when it's software, it's just that much more automatic. You can talk to them there. They'll be at every single one of them, and you can learn more about how you can get better at this stuff. Anything you want to add?
Just don't use the excuse if I don't have the money. There's ways to do this for free. Just use the free budgeting tool. If you're like, dude, how do I get to the front of the line? Book a demo. We'll show you how it works. Basically, on those demo calls, we try to learn more about your business, where you're at currently in this whole discussion that we were having today, and map solutions to potential pain points or bottlenecks you're currently having. And if we don't have the right solution for your current pain or bottleneck, then that's it. We don't want to sell you something you don't need. But at the same time, just take action, because it's easier to continue doing what you've always done, even if that way's broken. So just make a commitment to yourself that what you're not going to let the pains and the bottlenecks of last year carry forward into the next year.
If it's hard and it's painful, it's probably because it's worth it.
That's right. Yeah. Growth is painful. That's right.
Yep. As much as I wish it wasn't, that's what it is.
That's right.
All right, man. Thank you very much. Everybody, make sure to check out synkedup.com, and make sure to sign up for Hardscaper Showcase, free event coming up to a city near you this winter. Over 10,500 contractors will be in attendance again. We got Pay Repeat in the gang. We built an awesome backyard, tapping into the latest trends in the market, health and wellness, and how you can make that work for you so your businesses, your designs, your jobs can stand out and you can win in 2025. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week on the Hardscape Growth Show. You've been listening to Hardscape Growth, a podcast for hungry professionals who want to grow their businesses and level up. Each episode is all about taking the next step in running your business, so make sure you never miss a show by subscribing on your favorite podcast player. And if you're finding this information to be useful, help others in your position discover us by giving us a star rating and leaving a comment. We'll see you next week.